It began centuries ago on a mystic morn in the heather-clad highlands of Scotland. A valiant archer brought down a charging stag with a single arrow, and so saved the life of King Alexander III, ruler of Scotland in the 13th century. A solo shot that brought fame and royal privilege to the clan of Mackenzie, the king bestowing upon the house the stag's head, the crest of distinction, the symbol of valor. From these noble origins, the legacy continues with the Dalmore, Scotland's finest single Highland malt Scotch whisky since 1839. Today, while some things in Scotland have changed with the times, certainly the making of its national drink, single malt Scotch whisky, has not. There's a reason for that. Of all the spirits that mankind has distilled from the goodness of nature, the most individualistic and therefore the noblest is single malt Scotch whisky. Around the world, the more familiar spirit is blended Scotch whisky. In Scotland, while blended Scotch whisky is much admired, the more revered and refined taste is that of single malt Scotch whisky. What then, you may wonder, is the difference?
The difference between a single malt whisky and a blended whisky is simply this. A single malt comes from one distillery only, whereas a blended whisky comes from many different malt distilleries and grain distilleries.
For the single malt connoisseur, the map of Scotland is divided into 4 areas. The lowland malts, while not as complex in taste, play a role in the making of fine blended Scotch whiskies. In the west, the Campbeltown and Islay regions are known for their pungent, peaty Scotches. And then there are the Highlands. Here, in the fierce beauty of the Highlands, with its moors shrouded in mist and icy winds that sculpt the land, most single malt Scotches are made. And here the craft and traditions of making the finest Scotch whiskies have evolved from generation to generation.
Malt whisky comes from different areas of Scotland. First of all, the lowlands, the Campbeltons, the Isles, and finally the Highlands. And no two whiskies are alike. Each one is different in its own way, from the aroma, character, and finally the taste. Now the world has an opportunity of enjoying whisky, something that the Scots have been enjoying for the last 1500 years, Iskeball.
The water of life. Scotland's pure and gentle waters are perhaps the most important element in the making of single malt Scotch whisky. It is in the crisp, clear waters of the River Alness that such vital flavour is imparted to the Dalmore. The Dalmore has exclusive rights to these waters, protecting the uniqueness of this single malt. It is no accident that the Dalmore distillery is found in such picturesque settings, so close to the barley, the water, and the peat, which are intricately woven into the process of making the Dalmore. The barley is picked at the peak of ripeness, then soaked in pure water. After approximately 4 days, the water-soaked barley is then laid out on the malting floor by the time-honored tradition of hand-turning to germinate. Each kernel begins to swell and sprout to produce a natural starch. The germinated barley is then lifted and dried on the malting floor over slow-burning fires of local peat to become malted barley. Part of the magical character of the Dalmore is conjured up from out of the mysterious qualities of the peat. Added to the kiln, the peat gently imparts its distinctive aroma to the malt, which is ground and then mixed with water in the mash tun to become wort. It is then cooled and transferred to the washback. Here, the mixture is fermented in large wooden vats by adding yeast and allowing it to swell. Here you see various stages of fermentation, ready to yield a mixture for distillation. The wash is then distilled for the first time in copper pot stills. Every distillery has its own unique shape and size stills. Each shape contributes to the character of the spirit. The first distillation is to rid the spirit of any impurities. During the second distillation, the well-trained stillman carefully collects the pure spirit that is to become the Dalmor. He views the color and temperature, and only after he is certain the spirit is fresh, clean, and clear will he accept it for maturation. Youthful to the taste, this sibling spirit is poured into casks. The casks are rolled into the distillery warehouse to begin their long, mysterious life of maturation, to become, after many years, the Dalmor. Not until the spirit matures for 3 years does it gain the name Scotch whisky. However, in practice, few single malts are released in less than 8 years, and 10, 12, or longer is more common. While many things help fashion the individuality of each single malt Scotch, the single most critical factor is the maturation. Time must now work its miracle. In the dark coolness of the warehouse, evaporation of the spirit occurs, blackening the walls. Legend would have it that the blackening bespeaks the presence of the ever-watchful, ever-wakeful guardian who samples the spirit to ensure perfection, an occurrence called the angel's share. The peak of perfection for the Dalmor is 12 years, and there are specially selected sherry casks that are held to mature for 25 to 50 years. About the time this 50-year cask was first sealed, Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz premiered and went on to captivate the minds and hearts of audiences worldwide. When this 25-year-old cask was first brought here, John Glenn had just orbited the Earth, and the Beatles changed forever the way we hear music. The single malt you've seen made today won't be ready for consumption till the 21st century. Water, earth, and fire, all are essential in the distilling of Scotch whisky. But now it is the turn of Scotland's icy northern winds to play their part. As the wind blows across the water, the warehouses attain a fresh, briny atmosphere. This clear, cool air steals through the porous sherry casks and charms the contents. When the casks breathe, they inhale the brisk breeze, contributing to the smooth and golden taste that is the Dalmor. Then it is the master blender, Richard Patterson's turn to work his own brand of magic. In a single malt, the original spirit must all be identical from the one distillery, but it is up to the master blender to maintain the consistent quality year after year. And it is his finely tuned art of nosing or smelling the taste that determines and ultimately selects the finest end result. He is the final chapter, the imprinter of quality in a long, carefully nurtured odyssey steeped in time and tradition that brings to fruition the taste of success that is the Dalmor.
I learned about blending from my father and my grandfather because they too were master blenders like myself. And I remember my father taking me into the warehouse when I was only 8 years old, believe it or not, and saying to me, "Well, what do you think of these whiskies, son?" And I had to nose them and assess the qualities even at that time. Swirl the whiskey round in the glass, let the aroma rise, and then smell it. But don't smell it too quickly. Smell it slowly. Let everything that's captured in that glass rise slowly. First of all, is it dry? Is it old? Is it new? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Does it contain peat? All these different characters are captured in that one glass.
More and more renowned culinary meccas throughout the world are discovering single malt scotches are what the sophisticated social drinker wants. As one food and spirit critic noted, People are drinking less, but drinking better. They are opting for the unique and individual tastes of single malt Scotch as well as cognac or brandy before or after dinner. And just as there is an art to the tasting and enjoying of fine wines and spirits, so too is there an art to tasting single malt Scotches. We invite you to learn the art of single malt tasting and to share it with your friends. While not etched in stone, it is a nice touch to set a refined and elegant mood with music, either classical or traditional Scottish violins or bagpipes. You should strive to reduce any smells that may interfere or disturb the delicate balance of aroma and taste. For a proper tasting, you want a glass with a narrow rim to hold in the aromas, such as a tulip-shaped wine glass or a snifter. You should not use tumblers or martini glasses. Single malt Scotches, like fine cognacs, are best drunk neat, or with a little natural spring water to cut the alcohol and free the bouquet. The Scots never serve the single malt mixed in a cocktail. Encourage the tasters to first nose the Scotch undiluted. Here you are educating your nose to the distinctive aromas of different single malts. The proper technique is to swirl the spirit around in the glass, then place your nose fully in the glass. Nose all of the single malt first, before tasting. Look at the colour to view the richness and perfection of each malt. Make your choice by aroma, then taste each spirit without water. If you wish, try each malt with a splash of natural spring water. While water is acceptable, the more traditional way is straight up. In Scotland, ice is never used in single malt tastings. Unlike wines, single malts need not be chilled or opened beforehand to breathe or be decanted, and should be served at room temperature. For your first tasting, you will want to select 5 single malts, 1 from each region and 2 from the Highlands. Later on, your tasting may concentrate within one region, or you may wish to sample different years of one single malt. Single malts will generally be found at fine specialty liquor stores. First, include a lowland malt as part of your tasting. These are the softest of single malts, light in body and flavour. Good examples will be Auchentoshan or Bradnoch. Second, the elegant, noble and complex single malts of the Highlands. These are representative of what most people look for in a single malt, so you will want a variety of them as part of your tasting. Rich, smooth and silky, the malts of the Highlands are the ultimate statement of the distiller's art. Examples for this region would be Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Macallan, and of course, the Dalmore. Next, the Sea Mist single malts from Campbelltown. While the availability of these single malts have diminished in the United States, a good example for their tangy, briny character would be Glen Scotia and Springbank. Finally, Islay single malts. These are intense seaweed-like, smoky, almost pungent single malts. Look for one of these brands as part of your tasting, Bowmore or Lafroig. In later tastings, as you concentrate on one region, we would recommend the Highlands. And essential in any tasting of the Highlands is the Dalmore. Note in particular the Dalmore's powerful aroma, polished and intense with a rich velvet and silky bouquet. Its taste reflects the soft wood of the sherry casks. The rich, complex flavors remain long in the mouth. You may wish to round off the evening with a selection of Scottish specialties like smoked salmon, shortbread, haggis, and authentic Scottish delicacies such as smoked cheddar cheese or meat pie. A special favorite are Scotch eggs with mayonnaise. While food is a personal choice, in Scotland, single malt whiskies are traditionally shared with people for socializing before and after dining. Remember these tips for putting on a successful single malt tasting. We recommend that you use glasses with a narrow rim to hold in the aromas, such as a tulip-shaped wine glass or a small snifter. Single malts need not be chilled or opened before tasting and should be served at room temperature. Single malts are best drunk neat or with a splash of natural spring water. Teach yourself the art of nosing. Educate your nose to the distinctive aromas of different single malts. To follow the proper tasting order, begin with the lowlands. Choices include Auchentoshan and Bladnoch. Move on to the highlands, where selections include Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Macallan, and, of course, the Dalmore. Continue with Campbelltown, choosing Glen Scotia and Springbank. And finally, from Islay, choose Bowmore or Lefroig.
Ceilidh is derived from the Gaelic word meaning conversation, and it was used many years ago for people in the Highland region in particular as a sort of get-together to enjoy stories, to hear about what was going on in the world, and of course to enjoy whisky with it. The Dalmore is something special. It's not just something that's been created overnight. It's taken 150 long years. And the fathers passed the secret down to their sons. They knew the secret of the water, the distillation, the mashing process. Each part played its individual part in creating the magnificent character, the superb character of the Dalmore.
From the wonders of nature and the miracle of time comes a legendary taste. International in spirit, steeped in a time-honored tradition that has been handed down from generation to generation. Truly, it is time to savor the taste of success known as the Dalmore.